School lunches are an important part of every growing child's day, but maybe for all the wrong reasons. It's no secret school lunches in America leave a lot to be desired, some of them ranging from somewhat passable to something you'd find at the bottom of your shoe. In this video, we'll be discussing the unhealthy truth of school lunches in the US and why you should be worried about your kids. This video is sure to catch the attention of the doting parent in you. The Obama effect? Now, don't get me wrong, school lunches were already horrible even before the Obama administration.
I was eating the chips and then I look in the bag and there's like this fried little black thing in there. Don't know what it was. It was really gross. Like I just stopped eating after that.
But things may have seemingly gotten worse once they tried to enact change. The Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act was signed into law during the Obama administration.
This bill's about reversing that trend and giving our kids the healthy futures that they deserve.
Enacting changes such as nutritional standards for school lunches and increased funding to support these newfound standards. Now, this is all great on paper, but things start to fall apart in practice. One of the many impositions of the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act was that each student is now required to have at least one serving of fruit and vegetable added to their plate. Now, this would have been a favorable gesture if it weren't for the fact that these mandatory servings come from the pockets of the students themselves. The result is a pale and slimy serving of subpar fruits or vegetables that students would often just throw in the trash. This not only leads to food waste, but also leads to more costs on the part of the students. So now that these mandatory fruits and veggies have failed, what then of the increased nutritional standards for school lunches? This is where the crummy hands of big business get in the way. School lunch meal suppliers are now faced with a great dilemma. The imposition of standards means that they have to up their game to meet them. Meals and ingredients now have to actually fulfill a growing child's basic nutritional needs, something that should have been obvious from the start.
50% of children between the ages of 2 and 15 have fatty streaks in their arteries, and this is literally the beginning stages of heart disease.
And props to these suppliers, they did, but only the bare minimum, and when we say bare minimum, we mean bare minimum. The nutritional values of certain ingredients have only been increased just enough to receive a special sticker certifying they're up to code. Although the Obama administration had their best interests in mind, it seems that these changes just ignored two main factors: schools are still businesses with profit as their bottom line, and that students are allowed to be picky with their food. These changes are what led to American school lunches as we see them now. Petite. Food isn't really all about taste, it's also a matter of whether or not you would even eat it in the first place. At a glance, walking through the sneeze-proof line of the cafeteria, you're given a choice between two main dishes: a mystery meat stew that you have to pray has actual meat, or a hot dog placed between what looks like the two driest buns in the world. In fact, chicken nuggets being the most awaited heaven-sent school lunch menu item says a lot about just how bad some school lunches look. There's nothing appetizing about how school lunches look. The meat is mysterious and unidentifiable, the vegetables are wilted and don't look nutritious at all, and yet each time at lunch, these servings are still plopped into styrofoam trays for students to eat.
Evie cut into her food and it was all pink, so while I was eating my chicken sandwich, I finally looked into it and it had like pink lines running through it. It was just bright pink.
Of course, we're not really expecting anything gourmet from school lunches, but you gotta expect at least a little bit of care put into what your food looks like. If the bland colors and sloppy textures weren't enough to throw you off, then maybe the brand labels will. That's right, another of big business's fingerprints is shown in the form of huge brand labels along with your school lunch. Brands such as True Moo, Smuckers, and heck, even Little Caesars are only some of the brands on your plate, advertising to you with each unhealthy bite. Taste? If the lunch looks unappetizing, then it's safe to assume that the taste probably isn't either. Textures range from a dry burger to a sloppy serving of mystery meat and gravy. Got that in your mind? Great, because we can't take it out of ours. What's even more surprising is that these cardboard cutouts we call lunch are actually an improvement from what it was years ago. Thanks to the Obama administration, the regular white bread hamburger buns have now been replaced with a healthier wheat bun. But if we're being honest here, no matter how much of an eyesore the branded partnerships are within the school campus, it's that junk that usually ends up tasting the best.
And if they're eating junk food in schools, then the schools are telling them that that's okay, it's appropriate, it's what happens in schools. That's not right.
One such partnership has to be Little Caesars Premium Pizzas, served at least once a week in certain American school lunches, but really the highlight of most school lunches nowadays lies in the dessert. Branded fruit cups and sugary syrup, or ice cream scoops if your school was lucky. Accommodation. Another big problem brought about by the greedy hands of business would be the accommodation for picky eaters. Not all students in the school have dietary freedom, some of them are quite restricted in what they can and can't eat, and the reasons behind these dietary restrictions are often very pressing. One such example would be students with allergies. If you ever come across a point during lunch where you have to choose between having an allergic reaction or starving, it's easy to just choose to starve. It seems the school has even done it for you by not serving up any other alternative. One instance I'd like to highlight is when students are religiously restricted from eating pork. The population of halal-only eaters in the United States are growing ever so slightly, and they need to be accommodated. One school in America has accommodated these dietary restrictions by serving mock chicken nuggets. And what do these chicken nuggets contain? That's right, pork, the very thing the students have been avoiding. Now we know the picture of the future that we've painted sounds very bleak, but it doesn't have to be. The bright forefront? The future for school lunches in some areas of America are being introduced to a brighter future with just two simple words: scratch cooking. The process of cooking, well, from scratch, this is what certain schools in America have been doing recently, sourcing fresh, locally grown choice ingredients for their lunch dishes instead of relying on ready-to-eat meals rehydrated. Not only that, but lunch staff are now given more culinary credit because of how much work goes into making these meals. Call it a labor of love. The result is a serving of lunch that can pass for a home-cooked meal. With juicy burger patties and chicken fillets galore, the salads that go with the chicken no longer have to be dull and wilted. Instead, being colorful and actually appetizing with matching low-calorie dressings. The taste itself is just as improved, seasoned just right so that it still fits well within the standards set by the Obama administration's Healthy Hunger, Free Kids Act. Furthermore, because these meals are now being cooked from scratch, there's a lot more room for adjustments to accommodate dietary restrictions. People who are actually restricted to halal means they will now be strictly served halal food. These changes seem so stupidly obvious that they should have already been implemented nationwide. Well, the answer is sadly just as obvious. What's stopping it? Money makes the world go round, and sadly it makes the culinary world go round too. It's mind-boggling to think that the Happy Hunger Free Kids Act is the first and only increase in the food budget for schools. The money and effort it takes for suppliers and schools to logistically source the freshest ingredients out is much higher compared to the regular ready-to-eat frozen meals that most American school cafeterias have. Plus, the ingredients do not come cheap at all, and such a big daily operation is sure to cut into the school's profits. School cafeteria workers also have to work double time since the process of cooking meals from scratch is much more complicated than, let's say, serving up slices of pepperoni pizza. The food is undeniably healthier because of the freshness of the ingredients, but many students still find a lot to be desired when it comes to texture and flavor. Yes, scratch meals are a huge leap forward, but hopefully we don't stop there. And now we leave it in the hands of the next generation. Students have even now been recently forming groups that actively protest and call to attention the horrible quality of their lunches. We can only hope that the people who can do something about it actually do something about it. Did you have a nightmare cafeteria meal growing up? Any favorites that come to mind to prove us wrong? Sound off in the comments below, and please don't forget to like the video.